Chapter 1.1 Awakening. Zheng Zha had always felt like he was dead inside in the reality. The endless cycle of going to work, coming home, eating, excreting, sleeping, and waking up left him questioning the meaning of his existence. It certainly wasn't in his supervisor's greasy, smirking face. It wasn't in the shallow relationships with so-called professional women he met at bars. Nor was it hidden in the steel jungle of the modern city that stretched endlessly before him. He felt like he was rotting away. From the age of 24, he would decay until he was old, eventually turning into dirt, leaving behind nothing but a name. No, not even that, because no one would remember him. A small-time office worker, whether genuinely cultured or a pretentious pseudo-intellectual, was merely a speck of dust in the vast world. He wanted to change something. He wanted to find his purpose. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you want to truly live? This morning, when Zheng Zha turned on his office computer, this line suddenly popped up on the screen. It was clearly a gimmick from some immature hacker trying to draw attention. Whether you clicked yes or no, the result would inevitably lead to downloading a virus. He sneered and reached out to close the window. But just as his finger touched the mouse, a strange unease washed over him, causing him to pause. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you want to truly live? A deep confusion gripped Zheng. There was an indescribable pull that made him hover his finger over the left mouse button. Finally, he clicked yes. In an instant, his consciousness faded into darkness, cold tremors. The moment he regained consciousness, Zheng Zha shot up from the ground. He looked around in panic, his office environment clashing with the unfamiliar surroundings in his mind. After a few seconds, clarity returned. Not bad. You're the best one in this batch. The voice came from nearby. Zheng Zha turned and saw a young man with black hair sneering at him. The man looked to be around 24 or 25. His appearance utterly unremarkable, but several scars across his face gave him a menacing, almost monstrous aura. The man held a cigarette in his hand, taking a long drag before looking past Zheng Zha to something behind him. Turning, Zheng Zha noticed 5 people lying on the ground, nearby 3 men and 2 women. Apart from them, there were more than a dozen foreigners in this enclosed space. It was a train car. The cold and the vibration came from the rapidly moving vehicle. Where is this place? Who are you? Why am I here? Zheng Zha bombarded the people around him with questions. Noticing the presence of foreigners, he even switched to English. The foreigners glanced at him briefly before looking away. Only the scarred young man took another drag on his cigarette and replied, "Think carefully. The answer should already be in your mind. Think carefully." Zheng Zha began to comb through his memories. He could only recall seeing the message. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you want to truly live? He had clicked yes, and then lost consciousness. Wait, something else was in his mind, nous, something about survival and life. This was a game. Who created it no longer mattered, be it gods, demons, aliens, or humans from the future. The fact was, he had become a part of this game. Or rather, he was now fully immersed in it. The game was designed to target people who felt lost in modern society, those who believed they were decaying. It presented them with a choice. Once they entered the game, they were sent to various horror movie scenarios. This time, it's the first Resident Evil movie. You rookies are so lucky. Your first mission happens to be from such an easy horror film. Even if you die, it should be a fairly painless death. The black-haired man took a final drag from his cigarette, before crushing the butt in his palm. So you're saying we're just consciousnesses uploaded into a computer, like something out of a sci-fi novel. And once we complete the game, our consciousness will return to our bodies, allowing us to live again. The speaker was a chubby man sitting on the ground beside Zheng Zha. He looked around nervously as he asked. The black-haired youth pulled a handgun from his Coda Desert Eagle. As he adjusted the weapon, he spoke coldly. Whether we're just consciousnesses or not, I don't know. But you'll feel pain, you'll get hurt, and you can die. Also, you're wrong. When you finish this game, you won't go back to your life. Instead, you'll be thrown into another horror movie. You might have seen it, or you might not. After every round, the Lord God will bring in new members to replace the ones who died, with the total number ranging from 7 to 20. In other words, this Resident Evil scenario is considered low risk, which is why there are only 7 of us this time, the chubby man sneered. And how do you know the ones who died didn't return to their bodies? Maybe they chose to die on purpose. The black-haired youth's head snapped up, his eyes flashing with a cold glint. In that instant, he transformed into a panther-like predator. Before anyone could react, he sprang forward, pinning the chubby man to the ground. The Desert Eagle was shoved mercilessly into the man's mouth. Do you want to try dying? The youth growled, his voice trembling with fury. Can you even begin to imagine the boundless terror? I've survived 3 horror scenarios. The first was a Nightmare on Elm Street. That one had 15 newbies and 2 veterans who had survived multiple rounds. But do you know what happened? They were all killed in their dreams. Only I and one other person made it out alive. Do you want to feel the absurd pain of dying in a dream? To watch everything around you turn into writhing flesh as you find yourself in a creepy factory, your body being slowly crushed by a giant pair of scissors. You piece of trash. Do you want to die? His voice rose into a furious roar, his intent to kill so palpable that it paralyzed the chubby man. The gun in his mouth prevented even a plea for mercy. Zheng Zha and the others, 2 men and 2 women, quickly intervened, pulling the youth away. With a cold sneer, he returned to his seat and resumed fiddling with his gun. If you die in these horror movies, it's real death, he said, his voice now eerily calm. And the way you die tortured and slaughtered by the monsters in these movies will be more horrible than anything you can imagine. If you don't have the resolve to survive, I suggest you kill yourself now. A bespectacled young woman with a calm demeanor asked. So, is there no way for us to return to our bodies? The black-haired youth let out a bitter laugh. I've said it before. This isn't just our consciousness uploaded into some computer. Do you really think this game is something human technology could achieve? No, this is the work of gods. To them, we're like insects, captured and thrown into these horror movies for their amusement. Both our bodies and minds have been transported here. There's no going back. At least, I don't think so. The bespectacled girl pondered for a moment. Her voice steady, she asked, but the way you're talking, is there actually a chance to return? The youth glanced at her, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. This batch of newbies is surprisingly sharp. Yes, there's a chance to go back. Everyone, including Zheng Zha, held their breath, their eyes fixed on the youth. For every mission you complete, every horror scenario you survive, you earn 1,000 points, he explained casually. You can use these points to redeem various things. For example, you can exchange 1,000 points for the right to live an additional 100 days in this horror movie world. A middle-aged man, standing beside the bespectacled girl, snorted. Who in their right mind would want to stay longer in a place like this? That's just asking to die. The youth smirked, but didn't respond. The bespectacled girl, however, seemed to grasp his meaning. She tapped her forehead thoughtfully and said, "No, I think I understand what he means. Horror movies come in different types. Some, like Resident Evil, are science-based. They can be explained scientifically and don't involve supernatural demons or gods. In other words, aside from the immediate area where the story takes place, the rest of the world should be relatively normal." The youth snapped his fingers. Bingo. Exactly. If you exchange your points for an extra 100 days, you get to live in the normal parts of the movie's world. Imagine that. After enduring multiple life or death trials, being able to live peacefully and without fear in a normal environment. That's pure bliss. Zheng Zha's body shivered. He was beginning to understand the purpose of this world. Yes, it was his stagnant, meaningless life that had made him feel like he was rotting away. After facing endless terror and brushes with death, a quiet and uneventful life would indeed feel like the ultimate happiness. The black-haired youth continued. Besides exchanging points for extra days of survival, you can also redeem other items. For example, this Desert Eagle, with unlimited ammo only, costs 100 points equivalent to 10 days of survival. Additionally, you can enhance your physical and mental attributes. Each day of survival can be exchanged for 1 point in categories like intelligence, mental strength, cellular vitality, neural response speed, muscle strength, and immune system resilience. A normal human averages 100 points in each category. In other words, if you survive just this one scenario, you could double your strength. Survive 100 horror movies, and you'll become a superhuman. The bespectacled girl, calm and composed, asked, "Let's go back to the basics. How many points do we need to return to our original world?" 50,000 points, the black-haired youth replied, pulling out a cigarette and lighting it. After taking a deep drag, he added, "If you don't spend any points on enhancements, you'd have to survive 50 horror movies to accumulate enough to go back." The group fell silent. Based on his explanation, surviving 50 horror movies without using any points to strengthen oneself seemed utterly impossible. Of course, 1,000 points per movie is just the base reward. You can earn extra points in the movies. For example, by explaining the rules to newcomers, like I'm doing now. The Lord God grants me an additional 100 points. Also, you've probably noticed the strange watches on your left wrists, haven't you? He raised his left hand, revealing a sleek, black metal watch with a minimalist design. Everyone instinctively looked at their own watches. The display showed several pieces of information. A countdown timer, reading 3:07, and other statistics labeled zombie count, liquor count, and newcomer count. You can earn 1 point for every 10 zombies you kill. 100 points for killing a liquor. And he smirked maliciously. 1,000 points for killing a newcomer. The group froze at his words. The black-haired youth glanced at them, his gaze lingering on Zheng Zha and the bespectacled girl, the only two who met his eyes with calm resolve. "Of course," he added with a cold laugh. Killing a newcomer results in negative points for the killer. He glanced at the two of them again, smirking. If you have any other questions, ask quickly. This horror movie is about to officially begin. The bespectacled girl exchanged a look with Zheng Zha, who nodded slightly. She then continued, I have a couple more questions. I've seen Resident Evil. At the end of the movie, the T-virus spreads to Raccoon City. Before that happens, we escape the laboratory using this train. Wouldn't that make surviving fairly easy? The black-haired youth nodded. Check your watch. Look at the top left corner. You'll see a name. Say it out loud. Matthew Addison.